In the twilight of Kevin Durant's career, will he get another ring? Welcome in or welcome back. Today, super excited to have another guest here. And I want to give an opportunity up front to say the level of talent that I have with me today. Colin Hatfield, almost 2,000 followers on TikTok, over 125,000 likes, and truly doing the Lord's work when it comes to the X's and O's of basketball. Really excited that you graced our presence today. Colin Hatfield, welcome to the program.
Okay, appreciate you so much. I'm a big fan of your page. Been loving the season previews going up, the TikTok content, all of it. So I'm just as excited to be on here working with a supremely talented creator in yourself. So I'm dialed in, man. Been super excited for this.
I appreciate that. I will take all the compliments that I can get. So when we start off here for these fan episodes, I like to give the floor to the people to kind of preview who they are. I do want to add a little extra caveat here. You, by your own admission to me, are not a Rockets fan. You
Right.
are, however, a Kevin Durant fan. And I'll be
Big
honest
time.
with you, if Kevin Durant wasn't traded to the Rockets, I'm not sure that I would have had you on for the Phoenix Suns
Yeah,
episode because what is there to talk about with them?
nothing.
So honestly, for us in this episode, couldn't have planned this better that he went somewhere exciting for once. So if you could give the people an idea of who you are, first I want to get to the fundamentals of it. You are very much ingrained in the X's and O's culture of basketball. So what was it? Was there something particular, whether that was you growing up or something you got into later in life, that really committed you to the idea of being a cerebral fan of the game rather than an aesthetic fan of the game?
It's a great question. I think two major events stick out to me. First time I saw Detail by Kobe Bryant, I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? There was a specific clip where Tatum gets the ball and he's out on the wing, and then Kobe slows it down. He starts breaking down the clip, and he starts with like, Tatum should have been a lot more physical. He should have caught the ball 10 feet closer to the rim. And I'm like, why does that matter? And at the time I'm 15, 16, so I'm not really sure about why he's making such a big to do about this seemingly small thing. And from there on out, I was like, okay, I want to learn and I want to try. Never will know as much ball as Kobe Bryant does, but I want to be able to understand what is going through players, coaches, what's going through these talents' mind when they're out there preparing for a game, working through a game, things like that. And also, I had a really good friend of mine, Isaiah Moss, played college ball at Iowa and then went on to play at Kansas. He transferred to Kansas, and the Iowa stint wasn't exactly smooth sailing. I thought he was super talented, and it didn't seem like he got the trust of the coach and the organization he deserved. And so I wanted to understand, like, why? What's the specific thing that he isn't bringing, or what is the coach missing about his game? And so that led me to like really deep dive into X's and O's, the strategy of the sport. And from there, it's been history.
I think a lot of times in the sports world, it's often flipped. You often start off as a young fan, just kind of attracted to the game, whether that be the play style or just the personality. And then once you get older, you start to develop this relationship with the game where you want to dive into the X's and O's. Is there a reason that it wasn't that way for you? Or were you just kind of so nonchalant about committing to a team?
It was interesting. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted to be a contrarian, but growing up in Indiana, specifically in Indianapolis, everyone was a Pacers fan, and all the rave was the Pacers. And like I was excited when they made their run in the early 2010s, excited through the Oladipo era, but I couldn't call myself a fan because I wasn't tuning in every single night. I wasn't devastated if they lost in the playoffs. It was just kind of like another team losing. I liked the guys, but it just wasn't, my heart wasn't truly in it. But just over time, I had to admit to myself, wherever Kevin Durant ends up going, like that's the team I'm invested in. Those are the games I watch the most, the teams I study the most. And for a large part, it shaped how I think the game, what about the game I like and what I don't like. Not that it's subjectively better or worse. It's just kind of aligned with a lot of the spots he's been in his career. So I think that's probably a big reason why. Because shortly after really latching on to basketball, it was immediately into being a KD fan. And from there, that kind of shaped my basketball thought process.
It reminds me a lot of the people that kind of grew up in the mid 2010s that weren't Heat fans. They were just fans of the wherever he at fan for LeBron. So that is definitely the sentiment here. And
Yeah,
I honestly couldn't think of a better player to attach yourself to. I think that some people kind of, I don't want to say attach themselves to the wrong kind of player because I don't think there's really such thing. But Kevin Durant is one of the most perfect basketball players to ever be created. He might as well have been laid in a lab. So really, for you to attach yourself to him, great pull by you.
thank you. Like you said, when you're working on 2K, especially pre Kevin Durant getting on Hall of Fame trajectory, that's what you were trying to build. A 7-footer that can do everything on the floor. And you talked about the aesthetic part of the game. That's the aesthetic part of it that I gripped onto early because I was like, what other guy at his size is moving, has the fluidity he has the moves in the arsenal, and I was just blown away from the jump.
Is there a specific moment that you can recall where you remember watching him and going, "Oh yeah, this is the guy that I want to follow," or was it a culmination of things?
It was a specific moment, early 2010s. I'm gonna guess pre 2013. Loved ESPN on Friday nights. The ESPN games that would come on Wednesdays and Fridays. And so I'm sitting down. I think it was just me and my brother. We're watching this game, and he is giving the Mavericks business. I'm sure that night he had 40 plus. And I would love to go back and watch that game now and see, what I think about it compared to being like a 10-year-old. But I was just so shocked that someone at his size could do all those things. And there was just no one else on the court at that time that I had ever seen play basketball that looked like Kevin Durant. We had seen a lot of guys come out and then we seen guys structure their game around them. And now we're getting to that point with KD. But at the time, there was almost no reference point for what KD was. The closest thing you could get is pulling a little bit of Dirk, maybe pulling a little bit of Kevin Garnett offensively. But you're just kind of mixing and matching. But you've got this unique guy who was just marvelous, also on really tough shots. So as a kid, it was just like, I need this. I need more of this. I can't stop watching it.
Because of his skill set and his frame, obviously, like you said, there wasn't that he was a prototype for lack of a better term. We had never seen something like that, and now every slender, 6'10" plus guy that comes into the league, oh, that's the next Kevin Durant. And unfortunately for all of them, that's a really high bar to assess. The closest one that we're ever going to see, potentially barring some sort of injury, which we don't want, obviously, is Wemby. And I don't even think that we should count him because he's like a prototype of his own. So for the Brandon Ingrams, for the Jabari Smith Juniors, now his teammate, I think they're kind of thrown under the bus. They're never going to be Kevin Durant.
It's unfortunate, and like you said, it's such a high bar to try to fight the accomplishments that come with it. Like you said, we've seen guys really try, and Brandon Ingram, my goodness, has quite the skill set. We've seen plenty 6'9" forwards like the Kevin Knoxes of the world that didn't end up panning out. But like you said, I do think Kevin Durant deserves more respect in the historical landscape of basketball because, like you said, post 2007, whenever we got someone that was 6'8" and above, had a slender frame, could handle the ball and shoot, automatically it was, can they live up to what Kevin Durant is? He's really helped build forward a new archetype of player that really everyone wants. That's really become what everyone wants at the 3 and the 4. But I don't know how long it'll be before we find someone that can replicate that type of success.
Absolutely. And because of Kevin Durant's longevity, there's a plethora of moments that you can kind of point to define success or a legacy. Is there something for you that stands out in the crowd as your favorite Kevin Durant moment?
I love this question, and there's a lot of moments, but the 21 playoffs. Oh my goodness. And it sucks because he obviously ended up losing short of what the ultimate goal is, an NBA championship. But watching him in the Boston series, fighting a young Jason Tatum, and that Celtics team wasn't phenomenal. They had some good pieces, but we all knew they weren't going to beat that Nets team, but just so efficient. And we saw him slide off the ball perfectly, let Harden take point guard responsibilities, let Kyrie be heavy on the ball, and Kevin Durant just seemed to fill in every gap, was amazing defensively. And then you head into that Buck series, and I was thinking, man, this is gonna be a 7 game. Or, we're not going to. They're probably just too big, too physical for the Nets. But you look at the end of game 2, and they've dominated this series so far, up 2-0, headed back to Milwaukee, and we're in a really good spot before Kyrie got hurt. So you see that stretch of ball, and then it was specifically games 5 and 7. I don't know if I've ever seen someone play a better singular basketball game than what he did in game 5. That was just special. Like he said, that was a spiritual experience. And just seeing him do everything from catch and shoots, getting it off the dribble, attacking guys like Giannis in one-on-one settings, which is no easy task. Defended something historically I think he could have been better at is rebounding. But in that game, pulled 18 rebounds, a triple double, a 40-point triple double with guys like Mike James, Blake Griffin, guys who aren't even around anymore. So to pull off that type of single night performance and do something similar in game 7, that'll just live in my mind as obviously he didn't have the team he needed at that moment with the injuries that happened, but this is the peak basketball experience.
I was actually having a conversation with my buddy Riley, who I did the Timberwolves episode with that dropped a couple of days ago at the time of this recording. And he was talking about Kevin Durant and what his life has been like post Warriors. And he said, yeah, I mean, he hasn't won since he left the Warriors. He must be part of the problem. And he was talking specifically about the Nets. And I went, no, that's not what that was. Because to Riley's credit, he only started watching basketball Wemby's rookie year. So there was like a lot of context that he missed out on, because you
Yeah,
could very easily go on Basketball Reference and see, that they underperformed because of their roster. It was like, well, Kyrie couldn't play home games and the
yeah.
other 2 road games in Madison Square Garden. And James Harden was in and out of the lineup with injury. Kevin Durant was the only constant that entire stint in Brooklyn. So if we're going to blame somebody for that Nets catastrophe, it's not Kevin.
100%. And part of the year that was so much fun was seeing him on a random Tuesday. I remember one night they came into Indiana, and it's like him and 3 2-way guys. And he goes out, gives you 45, put up 15 boards, like 6 assists. And it was just his ability to adapt from playing some nights with 2 other all stars to going with straight 2-way guys. And his dominance and impact on the game remains the same, regardless of the environment around him. And I think that's part of what makes KD so special.
I think something that kind of gets lost in the Kevin Durant debate is his pluggability. You can put him into any offense, into any scheme, into any roster, and he will still go
Mhm.
out and perform. And I think sometimes when people look at that, they go, "Oh, well, he must not be an effective player then if he's not changing the way things are." It's like, no, keeping things as a constant is just as impressive as being able to elevate somebody. Like, you're never going to see another LeBron James, right? I would never consider him a pluggable player. You kind of have to
Mhm.
change the way your offense is structured because of him. But with Kevin Durant, you could throw him and LeBron on the floor right now, perfectly fine. You could throw him and
Mhm.
Sabonis on the floor, perfectly fine. He is one of the true interchangeable players we have ever seen in this game. And I really love that skill about him. And I think, too, obviously he's, going to score 30,000 points. He's going to be like number 3 or 4 in the all-time scoring by the time it's all said and done. Because of all of those skills, maybe something that is overlooked, is there a underrated skill of Kevin Durant's that you admire a lot?
Defense. And it makes me so upset as a fan that he's never made an All NBA defensive team. I really think it's fair to say, but prior to leaving OKC, he wasn't deserving of that quite yet. He still had some issues in terms of the physicality, maybe not being as good of a weak side help defender as he could have been. But by the time he got to Golden State, my goodness, he was phenomenal. One on one on the ball, was great at it. Really good rotating over and helping. We saw it in Brooklyn, especially in that 21 playoff run. They a lot of the time downsized and went to him at the 5 or went to him at the 4. And he was able to be adequate in stopping one of the most physical forces of a team that we've seen in that Milwaukee Bucks that featured a massive anchor in the middle like Brook Lopez. You got Giannis driving. Drew can get downhill. That's not necessarily Middleton's forte, but he spent reps guarding Middleton one on one. So that playoff run really showed okay, he can do it all defensively as well. And then even in Phoenix, they had a really poor defense, but
That's
they
an
filtered.
understatement.
Yeah, it was horrific. It was so hard to watch, but they filtered out closer to the middle of the league when he was in the lineup. So just his presence alone could cover up some of the issues that Nurkic had with mobility, guard and pick and rolls. They didn't have a lot of own ball stoppers, so he could step into that role if needed. So it's just really disappointing that every stop he's gone, he's shown consistent good defense in multiple facets, versatility. The stocks were good. He has 7 seasons of 2+ stocks a night, finished top 10 in defensive field goal percentage 3 different times in his career. And I just can't believe that that didn't warrant a single All NBA defensive team.
I agree with you, especially in those Golden State years. I would make an argument that Kevin Durant was a top five, top three defender in the entire league. But I also think that because he's so good at scoring, rudimentary levels of, oh, he scores a lot, he can't be a good defender. It doesn't work that way. So that's why he's not getting the love. I don't think that he should have earned a defensive player of the year or anything like that.
No,
But to your
no,
point, the fact that he doesn't have one all defensive team in 18 years of play, ludicrous.
absolutely insane. And you bring up a fantastic point there. We get so stuck on these labels, and that might be one of my biggest issues with the current coverage of basketball. Once a player gets pigeonholed as this, we put them in this box and they're not allowed to grow anymore. Kevin Durant was never just a scorer. I think it's a real big disservice when he was just called the one of the greatest scorers of all time over and over and over again. When in reality, he's one of the greatest players of all time. He affects basketball in every facet. But like you said, that label got attached to him early and he's never been able to shake it.
I think that there could have been an opportunity for him to shake that label. It was super early on, though. It was the 2010 World Cup where he was the young buck and they had an opportunity to win gold. They did, obviously, because USA or whatever. And he had an opportunity to prove how good of a scorer he was, especially in that FIBA system. But he was also arguably the second best defender on that team. And watching the FIBA World Cup, I thought coming into the next year, we're going to start to see this narrative shift for him. And unfortunately for him, coming off the heels of winning a scoring title, it never truly got off of him. So it's unfortunate for Kevin Durant, but at least people like you and I can sit back and appreciate how good of a defender he truly was. Now that we kind of have a baseline of who you are and the Kevin Durant truther that you are, I wanted to take a chance to transition into what we could see for the Rockets this year. And to bury the lead a little bit, we have to make sure that those retention numbers stay up. We're going to have to talk about the boring stuff first.
Oh, yeah.
The way that I've structured these episodes, we talked about the draft. And unfortunately, maybe not unfortunately, because you did get Kevin Durant, but the Rockets did not have a draft pick. They traded number 10, which ended up being Kaman Malawach, to the Suns. I personally don't think so, but I wanted to toss this to you. Is there a scenario where you could see this acquisition, not Kevin Durant for the number 10 pick per se, but just not having a draft pick this year coming back to bite them in the ass?
I don't see it. I think there are some talented guys in this draft, but it's not one of those classes that you look back and you say, oh, there was a Devin Booker left at 14. I don't see that. Can it happen? Absolutely. We miss on draft prospects all the time. But not only was there not that type of talent available, but I don't think their need was sitting past 10. Guys that I think could have been beneficial for them if they went out and got him. I think Knuckle. I think he could have been really good as a shooter, another playmaker, a guy that can put the ball on the deck. I think that would have been nice. I like Malawach, but you've got Alperen and you've got Steven Adams right now, and they're both still got a fair amount of gas in the tank. So I don't see what exactly their move would have been. A guy that I think is a bit more of a far shot, but I could see really developing into a supreme talent in the league is Carter Bryant. Love watching Carter Bryant play, especially defensively, but he's flashed a little bit ability to get to the mid range, hit some pull ups. If he can have a consistent catch and shoot jumper, that could have been very valuable for Houston. But I feel like that one's a big gamble to take at 10 when you could have Kevin Durant on the way. So That's my thoughts on that one, but I'm kind of with you. I just don't see it being a big issue moving forward.
Shameless plug here. I made a video a couple months ago talking about how draft picks are not real. They're only real if you need them to be. If you are a bad basketball team, you need this idea of an 18-year-old, 19-year-old saving your franchise to be a possibility. But more
Right.
often than not, there's like a 30% success rate on draft picks in the first round if you're lucky. And to your point, while I do think that Kaman Malawaj will be a perfectly fine pro, I see his ceiling as like a better passing Clint Capella at his peak. As good as I think Kaman Malawach is, it's Kevin Durant. Like you do that
Yes.
trade 10 times out of 10. And it's sort of in the same conversation with the Clippers trade to get Paul George. While that didn't turn out favorable at the time, you still do that trade. And it was really a no brainer.
Going into the season that they did trade PG, let's be honest. Who thought Shea Gilgeous Alexander would turn into what he turned into today? No one. We all knew he was talented, knew he had the pieces to put together a nice career. But at that time, your video summed it up perfectly. That's not a real option for you. You go out and get the established all star in Paul George. Really, see, that's why I appreciate your content and appreciate people like you in the space that can have a bit more of a nuanced conversation, because some people will see a player get traded and just see the first round pick tag in the Bleacher Report notification. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. You're selling your future away. Some teams don't necessarily need a future. We're all focused on the now. And that separates, like you said, good and bad franchises at the moment.
I think that again, kind of super fortunate, but I hate revisionist history in our space, especially, but all of sports. This after this season, of course, the Thunder win the championship. Shea's the Finals MVP. There was this huge revisionist history of him as a rookie watching the Clippers highlights and people going, "Oh, there were signs. I can't believe that they traded this guy." It's like, are we for real? That was Paul George
Ah,
coming off of a top 3 defensive player of the year and MVP season. Are we for real right now? There's no way you thought Shea was going to be that good.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I completely forgot about that. Like you said, he was top three in two major awards that season. Dude was dominant all year long. I think career high in scoring, 27, 28, somewhere around there. He was he was impeccable that year. You can't look at that and say, "Hey, we've got a chance to pair this guy with Kawhi Leonard. Let's take the rookie over him." No. No. Like you said, it's revisionist history and we see it all the time. But it's just so unproductive to act like context doesn't apply, especially when we're looking back at older situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for nothing more than this video to be the catalyst for all this change, but we can only hope.
Right.
Looking at the rest of the Houston Rockets offseason, I think that they made as good of moves as any, even when you don't look at the Kevin Durant acquisition, because their re-signings were Steven Adams, Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green, Fred VanVleet, who restructured his contract to make all this money work, Jason Tate, and Jabari Smith Jr. Not only were you able to bring in good locker room guys, good vets to round out your rotation, bringing in guys like you said earlier, Steven Adams, who still has stuff left in the tank, and then being able to lock down some of your core young pieces in Jason Tate and Jabari Smith Jr. I can't imagine a scenario where they could have been this far ahead while also getting Kevin Durant. So, do you think that because of all of this busy offseason, do you think that this is the ultimate roster that we're going to get, or do you think that they could still improve somehow?
This is pretty maxed out. You know, there might be some moves in the cracks you can make, but overall, like you said, this is really an A plus job in taking that full commitment to winning, taking that step while still rounding out your roster perfectly. And like you said, you touched on this briefly. This is the most exciting spot Kevin Durant has gone to. And that's one of the issues I've had with him. It's never been necessarily his work on the court. I don't think he made the greatest decisions in where he was going throughout his career. You look at what happened in OKC, yes. At times, that's a prehistoric offense. Like, you got double bigs, you got Rush shooting 25%, Andre Roberson on the floor. It is literally just him spacing the floor. But also, you had this great group of defenders, rebounders, guys that did all the dirty work that could really help complement him and his skill set. And I think Houston has a lot of those, but also with a bit more refined offensive power. He didn't play with a big like Sengun that could pass like that. He didn't play, now you've got Reed Shepard who's developing off the bench, really good shooter, someone that can space the floor. Fred can handle, make really good point guard decisions. So I think they've maxed out about as well as you can do in a single offseason of keeping your core, but taking that big next step ahead.
We haven't even talked about Amon Thompson, what he's going to turn into, the nightmare for the rest of the league.
He's an alien, absolute alien.
I always loved that archetype for him, and he'll never be a Kevin Durant. Obviously, I mean, something miraculous is going to have to happen for him and a star for that to
Yeah.
happen. But I think that because of all these resignings and the other free agent acquisitions that we're going to get to, I think that this is arguably, maybe with the exception of that first Warriors team, the best molded team for Kevin Durant. Because, like we talked about, Kevin Durant is a good defender, even at this stage in his career. But the only thing he has to do is hoop. There are
Yes.
primary ball handlers. There are wing defenders. There are passing bigs. Like, he has to do nothing else but average 30, and that's what he was born to do.
100%. And the prior stops, like you said, were missing those things. And Phoenix, Book and Beal spent substantial amount of time out. So he had to play point guard a fair amount of nights. He had to run the offense, but he also had to play center on the offense on the defensive end, being the rotator, coming over, blocking shots. In the Nets whirlwind of chaos that they were, you don't know who's going to be on the floor or what night and what chunk of the year. So he was playing a bunch of different spots. So, like you said, this team is tailor made to let him go out and just play good basketball. And I'm so excited as a fan to be able to see that.
I think the only proof that you need that the Phoenix Suns roster was bad while he was there was that they were willingly deciding to let Kevin Durant play center rather than Yusuf Nurkic. That's the dire situation that they were in.
One day we might have to just sit down and have a full video or a podcast about how horrific the Phoenix Suns were in terms of organization. But yeah, that says a lot.
With all these resignings, of course, we've mentioned the other free agent acquisitions, and I think they did a pretty good job there as well. They brought back Clint Capella, who is not the Clint Capella of old of James Harden's Rockets. They did manage to swindle away Dorian Finney-Smith from the Lakers, who I kind of assumed was just going to re-sign with the Lakers because they gave up so much to get him. They went out and got Josh Okogie, who I think is a serviceable player, but also he has built-in chemistry with Kevin Durant, which is always really good. And arguably the biggest acquisition that they made is Celtics legend JD Davidson, who is going to be part of the, I don't know who the Rockets G League team is, but he'll be the all-time leading scorer there too, I promise.
100%.
Because of all these moves, I feel like the motive for them is pretty clear. They went out and got the specialist that we've been talking about. Do you think that that's a sustainable philosophy to just have everybody compartmentalize their job and let Kevin do what he needs to do? Or do we need to see some evolution from some of these other players?
I like the second option a bit more in terms of evolution. I think there's growth that you can get out of Jabari Smith. And now that he falls a step deeper on the hierarchy of options and scores on this team, he should have some new opportunities. This should be the year that you're getting really comfortable with attacking off the catch. Teams are going to run doubles at KD. You're going to get a lot more catch and shoot opportunities. It's your chance to grow as a cutter. There's a lot of things that you now have access to that Jalen Green on the perimeter didn't necessarily provide that team. So I would like to see evolution out of him. Reed Shepard, Amen Thompson. You know, I saw him working out. And summer workouts are very deceiving because Ben Simmons goes in there and looks like Steph. In a couple of clips, but then you get to the season and it's a different story. I get that, but Amen Thompson looks to be refining his game. He was training with one of SGA's main trainers, and he's already got a stupid skill set and is out of this world as an athlete. So if he can put together a bit more polish on the offensive end, build out a mid range, build out maybe a post game. Not even saying you need to be elite at catch and shoot, but could you just get closer to that serviceable mark? Could we get you to 34%, 35% this season? So if those guys can up their games in those ways around what Kevin Durant brings, we could be looking at something really special because you've got the constant in Kevin Durant, but then you've got this growth from these other guys that also bring youth, bring a hunger and intensity that maybe at 37 he can't provide at the moment. So I think there's a good give and take between him and the youth of this roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to take this opportunity to put it out into the ether. Jabari Smith Jr. is not a bum. He's been kind of unfairly put into that conversation because of how good Paolo is and how good Chet Holmgren is when he's on the floor. For whatever reason, people just view that as 1A, 1B, and then way down the list is Jabari Smith Jr. Jabari's still one hell of a defender. He is still great in the short roll. He still has the
Yeah.
opportunity to hit pocket passes and throw lobs. Like, he is good. He just needs to be more efficient. And I couldn't imagine a better mentor for him than Kevin Durant. He has to feel so lucky right now.
That's a video game situation. You are one of those archetypes that we talked about earlier coming into the league, but on the defensive end, you're a marvel. You know, you're amazing at closing space, getting back, defending the rim. You can defend one on one. You can do all these amazing things. But now you've got the perfect mentor to help polish out your offensive game, hit all those fine points in terms of your catch and shoot ability, your 1 and 2 dribble pull ups, but also increasing some of that on ball work because you're gonna have opportunities when KD's here when the first two options are guarding him and Sengun, maybe Aman Thompson, depending on how he looks, and you're going to be drawing a mismatch. So, can we clear out a side and give it to you? You know, can you be efficient enough, like you said, to at least, if you get 4 or 5 of those opportunities a game, can you knock down two? Can you give us three? So, I think that's going to be really big for him. And this could be that ascension point for him to close the gap between the other two amazing talents that were in that draft class with him. Not to exclude, I think Jalen Williams was in there as well.
Yeah, again, I think it's unfair that he was kind of thrown into this conversation. He's a lot closer to Chet Holmgren than we want to give people credit for. I don't think he's going to reach Paolo, but I also kind of think that was just for opportunity.
Yeah,
Paolo was given the keys, and Jabari had to play behind Jalen Green at the time. So if he
exactly.
was given the keys, maybe we're having a different conversation about him.
And put into the one of the worst spacing situations in modern basketball history. I feel bad for him as a rookie because you are playing behind Jalen Green. You got Sengun on the block. Those are the two focal points. And then no one else on the court can shoot. So it's really just kind of you were looked at as the spacer at times. So he was dealt a tough hand. And like you said, never not even close to a bum. That is a crazy thing to say about Jabari Smith.
Yeah, I do think that he may have the most to prove this year. I don't think that if he had a similar season to what he did last year, it would be a detriment to his career in any
No.
way. This is the perfect scenario for him and for Kevin. We've danced around it a little bit now. I think that we should, if there's any more to talk about, we should talk about the big fish that the Rockets got this year in Kevin Durant. And I think that if this was any other year in Kevin Durant's career, if this was potentially any other superstar level player, we could have this debate of what he could do. But we know who he is. He's Kevin
Yeah,
Durant.
right.
He's going to give us 27 a night on 50, 40, 90. And that's all that's going to be. He will be that until he decides to hang it up in 15 years. Who knows?
100%. It blows my mind. This dude has somehow been able to keep above 25 points a night since his rookie year. Like, that is so mind-bogglingly insane. I don't even know if mind-bogglingly is a word, but it's just so wild to wrap your arms around. There are guys from Paul George's draft class. I think he's the only active player left. Kevin Durant has surpassed that and still been an all-star level guy for 15 plus years. It's ridiculous. And then the efficiency has never really tapered off. So that is the constant. And Houston, I think it's reasonable to expect they should be able to depend on that type of output.
We should have known as a collective unit, we should have known that when Kevin Durant became the youngest scoring champion ever at 21 years old, averaging like 32 a night or whatever, we should have known then that this was going to be really special. But I mean, 15 years later, who could have foreseen him scoring 30,000 points?
I don't think anyone could. We talk about longevity with LeBron, but I think there's a group of guys that deserve to be talked about with their longevity as well. Steph's a different scenario, but look at his age. Steph is going to be, I think, 38 at some point in this season, and he's still amongst the best point guards in the league. You got to talk about Kevin Durant, got to talk about Chris Paul. Who could have seen these guys being this great for this long?
I try to tell new basketball fans to not take these kind of players for granted because I have been a fan of this league for over 20 years. I remember when elite point guards were retiring at 32. We weren't getting these long primes like we're seeing with some of these guys. So instead of viewing LeBron, Steph, KD, even Al Horford and Chris Paul to some extent, instead of looking those guys and saying that that is the rule, they need to be the exception. Your favorite player, pretty good chance they're going to retire by 34. Just
Yeah.
like
Brace yourself for it. Not everyone is cut like that group that we had right there.
super special, all of them. And if you can take anything away from this episode, just know that we appreciate greatness in this league.
100%.
We've had a lot of fun talking about all the good things in this offseason for them. I do think we need to touch on some of the departures, some of the bad here. I'm kind of a mixed bag about the whole thing. Their departures were Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, Jacques Landale, and Cam Whitner, which happened in a later trade when he went to Washington. I think that last year's team was immensely talented. That's why they were the number 2 seed. But I also think that they were very flawed and, more importantly, very young. With this being a more mature group, how drastically different do you see this season being than last season?
It's kind of hard to deal with that question in the sense that they were the second seed last year. But also you got to look at injuries because the Grizzlies were vying for that spot early and then Ja got hurt. Bain spent a little bit of time out. So that slants the upper west. Now you've got Denver in play. They look like a whole different team. So I expect Houston on an individual level to be better. Does that yield them the first seed? I don't know. I don't think so. I think OKC still got them beat, but I expect specifically them to be much better offensively. Last year they were, I think, 13th in offensive rating, and that was in large part due to how great they were on the offensive glass. They were able to pull that in, get a ton of layups off of it. The few threes that they could make often came off of offensive rebounds. This year, I expect that to jump. I think a reasonable goal for them is somewhere between fifth and ninth. If they can have that and then still be the top five defense that they were, we're looking at a really, really good team on paper.
I think that when you start to assemble these more mature, older teams, it is less about the seeding and more about just getting to a spot where you do have home court advantage. And then
Right.
wherever the chips fall in the playoffs, so be it. And I kind of think that that's what they did here. It If everything goes right for them, I kind of see their like absolute peak of a ceiling. Amon Thompson has defensive player of the year run. Jabari
Yeah.
Smith is a 40% guy from 3. Kevin Durant does what he does. Like if all these things go correctly, I think their absolute zenith as a team is the second seed, but that's more in part for how good the Thunder are because nobody is touching them in the West yet again. So I sort of agree with you. If I was going to eyeball it, I would imagine that it's somewhere between 4 and 7, kind of where you said. But like we talked about, the Thunder are already so good. The Timberwolves, even though they were a 6 seed last year, they were 1 game away from being a 2 seed. Like
Yeah.
these teams are going to be better. The West is going to be a slaughterhouse next year. And I think that will be a detriment to the Rockets at some level, but I still believe in this team even after all of that.
Yeah. We've seen the West be a gauntlet for 30 years now, but this is ridiculous. Like, you've got a handful of teams that could legitimately come out of the conference, talent from top to bottom. And yeah, I'm just interested to see where Houston falls in that because a lot of the time the regular season does lend itself to these younger teams that have the legs to be able to play hard, you know, 65 to 75 plus nights out of the year, when you've got some of those vets that, like you said, okay, we can pull back a little bit. We've secured a top five seed. If we're four, hey, we're four. If we're two, we're two. Wherever we fall within that range, we'll be ready for it come April.
I think too, because of all these acquisitions and some of these departures, I think that has to be the baseline going in the training camp. Hey guys, we have some young talent, obviously, like we've mentioned, Jabari, Jay Sean, Reed Shepard, but this is going to be, for a lack of a better term, a coast year. We need to take care of business, beat the teams that we're supposed to, be competitive with the teams that people don't think that we can beat. And at the end of it, if we're a home court advantage team, I think we're in a good spot.
100%. And this is something I feel like I've picked up with your team. I really do think coaches and organizations that are willing to experiment and aren't so dead set on being, we need to be number one, we got to be number two in the conference. If you give yourself some more wiggle room in the regular season, not only are you more healthy come playoff time, but you've also had more time to experiment. So when it comes time for the Celtics a couple of years ago, when we need Cornette to step in, like, yeah, Cornette's seen real minutes and he's had time to compete. For other organizations, like, we've given this guy a bit of burn. And I think you saw with Julian Strawther, like, he came out in that game five, maybe game five or six, and just tore the Thunder to shreds because he's had some time on the court to get to know the talent that he's playing with. So I really hope Houston can do that. And touching back on the departures, that's why I'm a little upset that they moved on from Whitmore. You never know with health, especially a guy up in age as Kevin Durant is, if Whitmore could have been able to possibly play that role later into the year, provide Durant some rest, and if not, step in the postseason and try to be active in that role.
I think that for Cam, he almost, again, kind of what we were talking about earlier, unfairly pigeonholed into being a scorer, going back to his Villanova days. And while he is very talented at scoring, we saw it at the Rio Grande Valley Vipers or whatever their G League affiliate team is. I think that you could still make an argument that not only is this a fantastic scorer, but this is just a fantastic player, but he just never got that opportunity. I think, if anything, Washington's going to win this deal because, as we were talking about, they're a young team. The Wizards are not going to be making a playoff push this year. So they're going to have this luxury, this affordability of being able to throw out different lineups and seeing what they have on their team. And I think that Cam may have like a sneaky 20-point per game season if given the opportunity.
100%. He's got the skill set. This league really is all about opportunity. You see it all the time. A guy is maybe pigeonholed, stuck on the bench. I'm playing with a team that doesn't fit my personal timeline, but then you move on and it's like, oh, I'm home now. I got exactly what I need and I've got space to shine. So I'm really hoping for that. I really want to see him really turn it all the way up. I think we saw it a little bit with Jordan Poole. The first year was really rocky. The second year he settled in and he looked really, really good. I think just a step or two beneath all-star level.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly kind of think that Cam Whitmore's departure is going to be the one that is probably, I don't want to say felt the most because obviously, if we're looking at impact players, Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green both will have more of an opportunity to do so. But I think if we're asked the same question in 5 years, I think there's a chance that the answer is Cam Whitmore because of what he could be. With Dylan and Jalen, even though Jalen is so young, I feel like we know what they are. I would feel worse about Dylan Brooks' departure if they didn't have Amon Thompson, if they didn't have Jason Tate, like defenders on that team.
Right.
For the Suns, they finally have somebody who's going to play defense. Good for them. And for Jalen, that's just the cost of doing business. You're getting Kevin Durant, and while I think that Jalen could be a premier player in this league, he could have like his mechanics look good. He could be hyper efficient. The problem with him last year, his whole career really, but last year in particular, he would score 40 and then take 5 games to score 40 points in total. So if you have an opportunity to upgrade from that to get, say, oh, I don't know, Kevin Durant, I think it's a no brainer.
You got to make that move every single time. You have to.
I don't I at the time of recording this video, the Suns video will go up tomorrow? Question mark. And I essentially said the same kind of things. I like Jalen Green. I think that he could be a good player. I think he is woefully miscast right now. I don't think he's a good backcourt mate for Devin Booker, who's going to have to play that traditional point guard role.
No.
So I think that while he did get an opportunity to get a bag, and he did, this is probably going to be a scenario where you feed him a lot of minutes and maybe trade him off for something else. So, because of all of these things, even though there were some departures, I couldn't imagine a better offseason for the Rockets unless they got a Giannis as well, which could have been on the table, but did not come to fruition.
Right. Hey, even as a KD fan, if Giannis is on the table at this stage in his career, you better go and get Giannis. So,
Yeah,
but like you said,
absolutely.
you can't really turn your head at the prospect of having Kevin Durant on your organization. So
As we're overlooking the entire season, what's like a realistic scenario for them? What is success for them? And more importantly, because of who we have as a guest, as the number one KD fan that I know, what does success look like for Kevin Durant this year?
I think success for Kevin Durant is going to come in the nuance of how he can help these younger guys, and if he can continue to maintain an overall healthy, balanced game. Can you still provide something on the defensive end? Can you be a bit more aggressive on the boards? You know, you've got other guys that are really aggressive, willing to crash. Can you also get on the glass a little bit and use your length? Try to find other ways that you can impact the game, but also give space to a young guy like Aman Thompson. You know, and I think Kevin Durant's never had a problem with coming up off the ball. We've seen it in virtually every stop of his career. But can there be nights where you start out hot and then you start working the short roll game with Aman Thompson and you let him get downhill, work as a playmaker, work even more as a finisher at the rim, which his layup package is crazy. So just being able to open up his game, what can you do for Jabari Smith? You know, can you be the one that feeds the post? Because we know they're not going to help off you. Can you feed the post and let Jabari attack one on one? So can he do these things to put these young guys, including Alperen Sengun, in a position to score, create advantages for them? But can't he still fill in the gaps, work as a defender, work as a rebounder? So I think that's what success looks like for him as a greater unit as a team. Obviously, once you make the type of move that they made, you have your eyes on the finals. But the great thing about what they did is they didn't mortgage their whole organization. So if Kevin Durant, let's say absolute worst happens and KD ends up requesting a trade next year, you still got Albert Sengun, you've got Aman Thompson, you got Reed Shepard coming off the bench. So you've still got space to work and build out this team moving forward. But I do think second round should be bare minimum. Like you really want to see them get out of the second round. If they are magically matched up with Golden State again, that should be a team that you beat. If you're able to take them to seven last time, adding Kevin Durant and his ability, it should be on you to help take them over that hump.
Speaking of the Warriors, little shameless plug this far into the episode. Tomorrow, I think, by the time we're recording this, I'm doing an episode with Goose Talk Sports about the Warriors. Really excited for that as well. Be on the lookout for that. I wanted to ask you this. There's been this weird conversation with Kevin Durant as of late, and I don't think that you would buy into it just based off of your fandom for him. But do you buy into the idea of if Kevin Durant can't get it done with this roster, that is somehow indicative of what he is as a player or his career? Does it define his legacy in any sort of way if he doesn't get it done?
No, and I don't like the conversation for the simple fact that it lacks nuance. And if you talk about these different stops in his career where things haven't panned out the way fans would have expected, there's a reason for that. You know, we look at Houston, excuse me, we look at Brooklyn and starting with Steve Nash. I don't think Steve was that great of a coach, but it was, albeit it's his first run and he's given title aspirations year one. If he was able to grow and develop a little bit, maybe we're having a different conversation. But Kyrie and Harden are constantly in and out of the lineup. Somehow you end that reign with Ben Simmons on your team. Just constant chaos in that organization. And you look when he got them to the playoffs, 21, things are going really well. It looks like you're going to win an NBA championship. Kyrie gets his ankle rolled up, Harden hurts his hamstring, boom, that year's done. The year after, James Harden basically bullies the organization into a trade, and you end up with Ben Simmons, but he's hurt and he can't play, and it's just you and Kyrie versus that Boston team that took another step that year. But all four of those games, albeit it was a sweep, those were close games. And if you have a slight tweak of the roster, you have a bit more physicality, some rebounders, a competent big, maybe that series looks different. So you just go down the line each and every stop. I think there's critical pieces missing that explain why he hasn't been able to win a championship. And also, a quote I have from a really good friend of mine. It seems very simple, but once you think about it, it's like, oh, one team wins an NBA championship every single year. You can set out, you can go out and shop, do all the spending that you want. You can change your philosophies. You can be the greatest with your strategy, your analytics. But if you don't have the health, the fit isn't there, and also, unfortunately, a team can just be better than you are. So I'm not going to say him not winning here is indicative of who he is, but I do think I'm not, I don't want to come off as like Kevin Durant is this absolutely flawless player, perfect, has never done anything wrong, because he has contributed to the downfall of some of the spots he's been in, some of the series he hasn't won. But I do think in most cases that the bigger part of the responsibility shouldn't have fallen on his shoulders.
Winning is hard. There's a reason that ring culture is a thing. I just think that we put too much on it. When we look at the guys like Jordan who won 6 and Braun who has 4 and Curry who has 4, like there's a reason that they should be in these kind of talks, but rings aren't everything because Bill Russell has 11, right? And he carried a bunch of guys who shouldn't have 8 championship rings to the
Right.
finals, right? So it can't be this be all end all conversation. And in the vein of appreciating greatness, I like to remind people that have this conversation in earnest that really truly believe that Kevin Durant is this bum of some sorts that he just got lucky his entire career. If he retired after the second championship, he would have been in the Hall of Fame. If he
Yeah.
retired after winning an MVP, there's still a good argument that he could have made the Hall of Fame. Like that's how good of a player that we're talking about here. So the fact he's only been able to add on to his legacy since then, stop pretending like Kevin Durant is a bad player.
It's just so ridiculous. And like you said, we had this conversation about rings, but I just don't like how the goalpost will continue to move. We look at the Nuggets, and at the time it was like, who's going to beat this team? They might have put together something absolutely unstoppable. Then you get hit with a rash of injuries, and you have some instability within your organization. And who's to say Jokic ends his career with just one championship? Like, that's a real possibility. Are we going to say that Nikola Jokic is not one of the greatest centers we've ever seen because of that? No, that shouldn't be the case. So, like you said, it's a team sport. We're not talking about boxing. We're not talking about tennis. We're not talking about there's 5 guys on the court that are constantly contributing or taking away from what's going on. So it's not that simple to say this guy has this X amount of rings, he's better than this guy because he has less. No. We just know better than we should know better about the game at this point in time.
I couldn't imagine a better way to end the season talk on that kind of note here. I want to transition to what I'm calling a content quarter. Of course, I'm bringing on content creators with the exception of
Yeah.
Riley. Riley, I love you, but you are not a content creator. I wanted to bring content creators on, kind of pick their brain, and more importantly, give them flowers. I'll start asking you these questions after the fact, but I did want to give you your flowers to see your growth this year in particular. I don't know when we became mutuals, but I feel like it was probably around like the 350 mark for you on TikTok,
Mhm.
maybe a little before or after. But to see you like rocket into the space that you're in now, I see all your stuff. I see, 200 likes, 400 likes, the ones that super pop off, a couple thousand likes. I
Yeah.
think that it's really great to see the success that you've had. And I've never been the kind of person that harbors like real bad jealousy feel. I think jealousy is good sometimes, but like I could be jealous of your success, right? I want to aspire to that, but it's never a derogatory thing. It's never,
Yeah.
I can't believe he's getting this success. It's like, hey, I'm glad that he's getting it, but also I'd love to get some of that.
Yeah.
So I just want to want to give a chance to give you flowers. Really excited for the success that you've had this year. Really excited to see all the X's and O's stuff coming up this year. And whenever you finally break through, like I know that you're supposed to, I would just like to be remembered as one of the guys that believed first.
Dude, that's absolute, like, it's stamped. It's, I'd like to consider it pretty locked in. And likewise, I want to give you your flowers because you've been not only just, I think, amazing in the space, because there was times where I was like, man, is there really anyone out here that's being authentic, being respectful to the game in the sense that you love it, you keep up with it, you dedicate your time and craft to getting better on the content creation side of things, seeing your growth within the short amount of time that I've been following you, seeing the hustle in terms of getting things out. I've just respected that so much. And it's meant the world to see that there are people who really do care about the game and aren't interested in taking these cheap methods to, let's say, bypass 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps because I know I could say this, have it blow up, and now I may be getting money off of it, I may be getting attention off of it, but I'm cheating the game that ultimately, for us as real basketball lovers, has done so much for us.
In the episode that I had with Jacob Locks the other day, be on the lookout for that if you haven't seen it already. He was talking about one of the things that he would pass on as advice for any aspiring content creator is just be authentic. And I couldn't really agree more. You could say a lot about my content, but you cannot deny that I love this shit. And I would be so bold as to say that there's probably like 1,000 humans on planet Earth that love this shit more than me. And I think, or at least I hope, that in all of my content, that authenticity, that love for this sport really just seeps out of the video.
Dude, it absolutely shines through. And apologies if I shouldn't bring this up, but the video you did in dedication to your dad, man, like that was heart touching in a lot of ways. And to see, the love of the game, it extends to family, it extends to personal relationships, and that you've been able to carry that on and you've been able to funnel that into what round ball renaissance is. I just love what you've been able to do, and it's inspiring to me because I hope that as I continue on this journey, as you continue on yours, we're able to stick to that initial love, that grassroots love of the game that helped us on this journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm gonna try not to cry the rest of this episode,
I'm
but
sorry, man.
it's one of those things now. It doesn't get easier,
Yep.
but something that does help is that I never once doubted that my dad was my biggest fan. So to be able to continue to do this, and oh boy, I'm gonna get a good thumbnail of this. Believe that. Uh, to be able to continue on and try to pursue something for him for a while it was just for me. Like I
Yeah,
wanted this, but now that he's not with us, I really want to do this for him too. So I really appreciate that.
100%.
Now that I'm done crying, let's get to let's get to your why. What started you on this journey? Is there a particular moment that you can pinpoint that you wanted to get into this field or this space, or was it just this idea that you had? You just wanted to see where it went.
I think they're the culmination of things. Starting out, I played basketball up until like the early part of high school, and then I ended up hurting my back really bad sophomore year. COVID hits, and then boom, I'm a senior. And it went from like, oh, you're not on anyone's radar now, but like maybe we can work our way into something. But I said this to myself often. I just feel like God put too much love for the game into me for like high school to be the end of it. For that to be like the last time I stayed immersed in what I truly loved. So from then on, I was like, okay, how am I don't know how, but like something's gonna come up and I'm gonna find a way into this. And then it turned into a friend of mine who was like, yo, we should start a sports page together. And I was like, oh, okay, bet, like let's do it. And then we just started and it was terrible. It was so awful, man. Like I was in Instagram playing with the sliders of like saturation and photo editing effects off pictures I'm pulling off of Google and then typing my little essay in the comment section. And it was just like, okay, like it's not good, but I'm putting it out. And I really do love it and it means a lot to me. But I'd say that was a big moment. Also, my mom told me this maybe a year or two ago. My grandpa wanted to be a news anchor. My mom wanted to be a news anchor, but neither one of them had the opportunity to do it. And along with content creation, I started anchoring news back in high school. My junior year went really, really well for me. Continued it, and it's something I want to do, professionally as well. So that was just it was a moment to be like, wow, this has been an aspiration in my family for generations now. Hopefully, I can be the one to get that done. Not just for me, but to, I think, successfully pay off the work for the people that put in so much work to put me in the positions that I'm in today. So I would say those are some big moments. Obviously, basketball was big in the family, amongst friends. Would sit down with my dad, and I just remembered hearing him explain certain things. Like early on, I was so enamored. Like, what's an assist? We were watching Steve Nash, and he's breaking down a pick and roll, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is that, and it just kind of continued to grow and grow over time. And I just believe like there was too many signs that like you really need to chase this. You really need to invest your time and attention into it. So from then on out, it was like, okay, I'm fully committed. I'm locked in, and we're gonna see where it takes me.
For any aspiring content creators that may be viewing this, your stuff is going to be bad when you start out. The big onus, the big hurdle is just hitting send. The first time that you
Yes.
hit post, that is the first hurdle, because you're going to get people in your comments that don't know what they're talking about, and they're going to be mean, and they're going to say your stuff sucks. Keep
Yes.
pushing.
Hmm.
I'm not going to link it in any sort of way, but the first video I posted on this channel was actually a film review of a basketball movie called The Way Back with Ben Affleck. And while I still believe everything that I said in that video, I don't have a microphone. The
Hmm.
lighting is awful. I don't have a tripod either. I'm literally holding the phone in my hand, and it's like shaking the entire time, because it ended up being like a 10-minute video. So for raw footage, it's like 25 minutes of me just doing this the whole time.
Right.
And even in the edit, I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. I don't even know why I'm going to post this. Just hit send, post the
Yes.
thing, and then you can turn it into something. And it doesn't have to be expensive either. Like the
No.
microphone that I'm using is $35. I got it on Amazon. I'm using a ring light I got from Walmart. These are $35 headphones. Like, it doesn't have to be this studio level production. If you are passionate about something, just hit send.
At that point, was talking with a friend earlier this year, Caleb, and he was saying he was getting on, oh, what's that app? SoundCloud. And he would have the wired headphones recording himself, and he just put it out, and I think in many ways that's so authentic, and it's so true to real love for content creation, real love to basketball, or whatever it is you want to do. If you're waiting to amass this fortune or become the greatest editor and have this professional studio level space like you talked about, you might be waiting forever. So why not just start, see where it takes you? What can you learn? Can I get some of these bad ideas out? Because there were times I put out a video. I'm going to go ahead and admit it. I put out a video about why Steph wasn't top 20 of all time. I had a big vendetta against Steph for a long time because I thought he really took away from Katie's legacy, and people always credited Steph for parts of the Golden State run. And so I put that video out, and I got destroyed in the comments. People are just obliterating everything I put together. And it was like, okay, that hurt. I had to patch myself back up, but it was like, okay, maybe while yes, there's things being said in this comment section that are personal blows, there is still some information I can take from, I can learn from. Okay, maybe my perspective is a bit wrong on this, or there's an element of Steph's game that I'm not appreciating in the way that I should. So there's just a lot of moments like that, like you said, to where I'm just putting out really straightforward bad content. But I was able to learn so much in those moments. Like that experience is just invaluable.
Well, especially now too, if you were going to put any effort in learning anything, it would be the audio correction. It would be the editing software. But a lot of times, these new, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be Adobe Premiere. It could be any run of the mill editing software. It has the noise cancellation. It has the crisp. It has auto correction. Like all of the tools are at your fingertips. You just have to like build up the gusto to put it out there. I don't post on it anymore, but I had a gaming channel that ultimately I gave up. it was like right after COVID where games just weren't fun anymore. There was no Among Us, there wasn't Fortnite, it wasn't Call of Duty. I was just kind of like dried out. I spent like 9 months with this video edited, and I just could not build up the courage to hit send because what if people don't like it? And the
Yeah.
video was received really well, but I think if I didn't do that with that gaming channel, I wouldn't be here. So again, just to reiterate the point, just hit send. What's the worst that's going to happen?
To kind of get on to that, I think it's so important to just hit send because one of the biggest things I've learned throughout this process is to be content with exactly where you are. Be content. Don't, I'm not saying be satisfied, like, oh, I made it this far, I hit this amount of followers, I hit this amount of engagement, I'm done. I'm not saying that's the mindset, but be okay with where your skill set is. Be okay with where your numbers are. Whatever that looks like for you, be okay with that, but then assess it and realize, okay, where do I want to grow? What do I want to push on? Because if you're in such a hurry to jump those steps and you take those shortcuts, what does it look like when you, let's say it's overnight success and you just rein in thousands of followers, millions of likes, all these things. What does it look like when a professional opportunity arrives, but, oh, I don't have this skill. I don't, I've only been doing this for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not really proficient in this. It's much better to just go ahead, take your lumps, stay the course and get everything done and be able to go into those opportunities when it really matters and be able to say, I'm proficient at this. I've had experience. I did poorly at this, but I got better. I'm proficient at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 skills. I've done all of the foundational work to put me in a position to where I don't need to be scared going into those big opportunities. So I just think that's so important. Be okay with where you're at and don't rush the process. If it's something you care about and you're willing to put the work into it, you're willing to have the patience to let things play out. Don't be afraid to sit in there and really be dedicated to mastering your craft.
Do you think that there are any content creators that you watch that kind of helped you get to this point, or any that inspired you and kind of helped mold that mentality in you?
I'd say a fair amount. I don't know if you're familiar with Bebo Breakdown on YouTube.
We
I
love Coach
figured you
Nick.
were. Yeah, we got to. So I remember just being in high school and just like hoarding those videos. I've told the story a couple of times now, but I have a YouTube playlist of what I call just basketball philosophy and strategy. And from the time I was probably a freshman in high school, every day I would try to watch at least one. Into college, like if I had a break and I was eating lunch, I would pop a video in and try to watch it. That playlist is now over 1,000 videos. So just over time, it was like I'm constantly consuming someone who knows more about the sport than I do and just trying to learn, learn, learn. Halftime hoops, he was really big for me learning X's and O's on a very detailed level. Coach Daniel was another one on YouTube that I thought was very instrumental. Straying away from like basketball content creators, I have a friend, Cameron. He used to run this gaming channel called KX Gaming, and just seeing how good he got in a short span of time with editing, After Effects, came up with his own intro, just put on some really amazing content. I was like, oh, like I people can do that. Like I wanna get better. I want to be able to do those type of things. So people like that have gone a really long way in helping me. A friend, other friend Cameron with the K, got a lot of friends named Cameron in my life for some reason, but those people had a massive impact on me wanting to refine my skill set, be more consistent, be driven, to just be versatile in whatever it is that I was working on at the time.
Now that we are about 50-ish days away from the NBA tip-off season, is there a goal that you have in mind for the upcoming season, or is it just this overarching theme of things that you want to accomplish?
I'll say it's a bit of mix of both. When I was younger, it was very much I want this amount of followers by the end of this year, and if it's not, it's a failure. But then you realize, like, okay, that you're kind of setting yourself up for some hurt if you go about it in that way. So I just kind of branched off into a mindset of what can I do to really master the craft. That's become a motto. Like I really just want to be able to look back at a piece of content I put out or something that I analyzed on a basketball front and say, this is good work. regardless of if you agree with what I'm saying, like it's objectively good, solid work. And so going into the season, I want to write a few more articles. I want to get out some long form content. Ironically, I am working on a video about KD and the Houston Rockets, and I think it should be decent. We'll see how it goes, but I want to get out some long form content, some YouTube videos, write a few more articles, and finish out this year like posting every day of the year. That's been pretty big for the engagement and the numbers. So I want to be able to do all those things overall. I just want to be in a position where every day, like I'm learning something about basketball, I'm learning something about content creation, I'm diving deeper, learning. I think one area I have for growth in is when I'm looking at games, I can tell you exactly what's happening like in this possession, but sometimes I'll lose sight of like the game narrative. Like, why did this team go from this coverage to this coverage? That might be a lapse in what I'm conveying to you in the content. So I want to be able to communicate that because it might take me a rewatch or two because let's say I lost focus or I wasn't, on it in the way I should have been. And so now it might just be this jump from them being in drop coverage to them being in ice coverage. I want to be able to explain to you, the viewer, why that jump was made or what insight I could give you in that facet. So those are some things I'm looking to work on right now.
I think it's important to have goals, but I will say again for any aspiring content creator, if you are the kind of person who will be devastated if you don't reach the goals, don't make the goals. I had a couple goals that I set at the beginning of the year this year. I wanted to hit 1,000 followers on TikTok. I wanted to hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. And then I wanted to get a video hit 10,000 views on YouTube. I am on track to reach none of those. And I can tell that I'm not going to hit that in September. So I have enough time to like brace myself for it. But if I wasn't locked in, if I was the kind of person like now knowing that I'm not on track and I was well, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? Just don't set the goals. Just take it as it happens and be content with that. That's one of the best pieces of advice that I could give.
That's real. And I think it also lends to the point of be focused on the process more than the result. Yes, while you may have had set out those goals and it looks like you're not going to reach them. I had a similar process. I was like, man, I wanted 10,000 on TikTok by the end of the year. I wanted to put out 10 YouTube videos. I've only put out one. So unless somehow I turn out 10, turn out nine in the next coming months, I don't see that happening. But it's like, okay, while that was tough, I maybe didn't get that goal. Have I been consistent? Have I continued to learn? Has my ability to create content grown in those times? Yes. So I can at least be okay with me continuing to be farther. I'm not in the same spot I was January 1st. So, like you said, that is essential advice. You will be setting yourself up to quit immediately if you set out some insane goal that you may not be able to reach and then it absolutely crushes you and it's all done within a month of giving it a go.
Now that we've entered our seminar of how to start a grassroots content creation channel, now we've reached the point, which is arguably my favorite in the 3 videos that we've done so far for the viewer at home. I give all of my guests outlines. That way they can kind of harness their thoughts and not misquote or misspeak or anything. But at the end, we're doing a lightning round, 5 questions. I don't give them the outlines for that because I want to see them squirm a little bit. So, like I said, lightning round, rapid fire, 5 questions. You don't have to give an elaborate answer if you don't want to or explain yourself. 5 questions. Are you ready?
Let's get it.
Active NBA player who would make the best coach.
Chris Paul.
Easy pick. If you didn't say Chris Paul, I was really interested to see who else would be on that list.
Right.
Best compliment you've received on a video.
Okay. This is kind of crazy because it actually just happened. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander saved the video I did on him on his like TikTok account. And it hit me. I was like, oh, there's a blue check next to that name. And then I clicked the page, clicked the Instagram, and it was his official Instagram. So I was like, oh, this is like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's account. That was a big compliment. Also, Houston Millett, who now plays at Alabama, found my content, and him and a guy that worked at Pepperdine at the time commented, and then we kind of like branched into making content together. So I think those were 2 really cool moments for me as a content creator.
Hell yeah. We love that. Favorite KD era.
Despite not having the team success, I'm going to go OKC. I thought the swag that he just carried was amazing. I love the shoes, and I love the OKC jerseys and colors. So being a fan at that time, it was really important to my foundation of loving basketball, to what I cared about within the game of basketball. And I think just attaching myself to someone who, at the end of the day, really just cared about going out and hooping, it was important. And once again, developing my basketball mind, but I think it was also really important in some ways of my philosophy on life. Like, there's a lot of excess going on. Let's get the work done. The work comes first. Get that done, and be committed to just getting better constantly.
If you had to pick a favorite NBA team, who would it be?
If I had to pick, let's just say right now, for the sake of being concise and not talking your ear off, if I had to say right now, I'm gonna go Oklahoma City Thunder. I not only love the way that they strategically play the game of basketball, but I think as an organization, they have this level of childlike joy that I just think is so amazing. And a lot of people don't like it. Draymond was like, "You'll never win a championship acting that way." Then they went out and won a championship. I love the post game interviews, throwing water on each other, towels all over the place. It's just a very fun environment, and I love the way that they play basketball.
And finally, what is your favorite set play?
This is a great question. Okay. Woo. Okay. I think my favorite set play, it's the elevator concept. And
Yes,
you
that
know,
was my answer too. God, do I love an elevator screen.
I love a good elevator screen. It does so much. It just looks beautiful when the timing, because you have to be so well timed to pull it off. So I would say that's my answer, but that is an amazing question. Okay. That was great.
Now, we've talked about your budding YouTube career. We've talked about your TikTok stardom. Those links are obviously going to be in the description. Where else can people find your stuff?
You can find me on TikTok at, I think, Colin.Hatfield Show. Same for Instagram. And I also do work for At the Buzzer. So it's ATTHEBU, and I think two Z's at the end, on both Instagram and TikTok.
All right, well, we'll be sure to get those links in the description. Top links. Make sure that you're giving Colin some love down there. That's all that I have for you. Do you have anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
I just really wanted to hammer home, really appreciative of you providing this opportunity. It's amazing that you see me in the light to be able to come on and do a season preview. Wanted to also extend the flowers back to you. You were phenomenal as a content creator, a basketball mind, but also as a person. And I genuinely respect that so much. So appreciate you having me on, and look forward to doing this more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that I have a collab idea, you're going to be on the first ring. Appreciate you
It.
coming on. It's going to do it for me. It's going to do it for Colin. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. And I'll see you in the next one.
Barely scraping by. Trying to stop puffing. I'm trying to be one of the greats.